Hi, Natasha.
Hello.
So today we will speak about your piece, The God-Fearing Woodsman. And maybe you can give a short background of the piece, for whom you wrote the piece and when it was performed and who commissioned.
Sure, yeah. I wrote the piece because I was developing a solo set for performance for myself. And um, my background is as a flute player, but I have moved away from the flute in the past years and have been interested in developing a new performance personality for myself and trying to figure out what that means. And so what that has evolved into meaning is that I tell sort of these abstract stories, and I perform electronics and I do some other kind of instrumental performance. So in the case of the God-Fearing Woodsman, I play bass drum and I trigger electronics and I do some storytelling and some motion at the same time. And that particular piece, the first time I did it, the first couple times I did it solo, but then my group Ensemble Pamplemousse, we toured with it with other pieces as well, and so I involved 4 other members of the group in the piece, and that's actually the way that I prefer to perform it now, because they act as these samplers in the piece. So they start to take over my text, and it becomes more and more discombobulated throughout the piece. Yeah, as they take over it. And that also enhances the meaning of the text, which is kind of this very bland story that's generated by an AI that I expanded myself, but that's very repetitive and has no purpose or meaning.
Mm-hmm. And how you choose this title?
The God-Fearing Woodsman.
Yeah.
So that's what the story is about. It's about a God-fearing woodsman who is searching for a sapphire, the most precious of stones, on the plains. And that's the story, and it keeps going, and it's about this God-fearing woodsman looking for a sapphire and encountering different beings that try to help him find the sapphire.
And what is the main message in the piece?
Well, yeah, so that particular piece is, I guess like a lot of my pieces are very much like about about life and death lately, actually.
Life and death?
Yeah. So that piece, the first part is just, it's very much like it's about the absurdity of text and about seeking things, like in this case, seeking a sapphire, seeking something precious. And then in the second half of the piece, there's sort of a descent into darkness. So there's a video projection of moving through the clouds throughout the whole piece, and in the second half of the piece, it descends into darkness. And the last line of the piece is actually taken from oh, I'm drawing a blank on her name. Wait, Martha Wainwright, sorry. Martha Wainwright's song, I Do Everything Wrong, which is a song that she wrote for her baby boy when he was born. And I have a small child. And so when I made that piece, that album was very meaningful to me. And that's where that comes from.
And I understand, right, there is a lot of narrative elements, in the piece. And who is the author of the text, and if you from which text you inspired? And
So the text, so there's an AI called Inspirobot, which is just a website you can go to, and it generates inspirational quotes for you. And there's a mode that you can enter into it called, well, I don't remember what it's called. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it gives you these little stories. And so I was just kind of going through that, and it generated this little story for me about the God-Fearing Woodsman. And then I expanded that story. And so I guess I co-authored the text with this AI. Yeah. And then there's some other kind of bland meditational text in it. So like, keep your eyes shut, keep on breathing. And then these like kind of absurd texts like after the amputation comes the boredom, and those are generated from the Inspirobot also. And then in the second half of the piece, all of the text is generated from a Tom Waits song, Stairway to Heaven, and the Martha Wainwright song.
And right, you said at the beginning there was only for you, and then it somehow expanded, right? What is for whom it was, for how many musicians it is?
Yeah, so now when I perform it with four friends, or sometimes it's 4 students. It's 4 people that are down to do it. And so they do like a sort of shuckling move throughout the piece, throughout the first half of the piece. And they start to take over the text. And then in the second half of the piece, they dance together, like awkward high school dance style, and say these sort of bland meditational texts to each other in loud whispers and stage whispers, and they move through the audience.
And from sensorial perspective, right, there is some sound, and then there is videos and dance, or what else?
Yeah, it's not really a dance. I mean, in the second half of the piece, they kind of, they do like very, like, I don't know if you had dances at your high school where you just kind of, you're like 12 years old or 13 years old and you can't get too close to somebody because you're very awkward. And so that's the kind of dancing that they do. And it just lasts for like a couple of minutes and then they leave stage.
And then how many parts are, right? In the total, it's almost 10 minutes, right? It's 10-minute piece.
It's like, I think it's like 14. Yeah.
And
maybe it's 10. I think it's 14. Yeah.
And how many parts? How it's structured? And
yeah, it's just 2 parts. So the first part is the God-Fearing Woodsman story, and then the second part is the pop lyrics, like the Stairway to Heaven and Tom Waits.
And are there like some kind of dramaturgy elements involved in those parts? And
some kind of what?
Dramaturgy, right? Why it's 2 parts, and what's the logic behind?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like two different stories a little bit, but like for me, they're very connected. And yeah, I don't know. It's like the first. I guess I've been doing this a lot in my work where I try to kind of get the audience into this, like kind of bore them into this place, kind of like with long, slow music that's a little bit repetitive, so that I can do something in the next part of the piece, so I can kind of like, I don't know, tell them something I want to tell them, I guess.
Okay, got it. And are there some kind of culmination points in which you think it's you like more grab audience?
Well, there's like no, I don't know. There's like a part in the middle where we also sing. I don't know if you know that song. You are so beautiful. So like I like to use like, kind of these like very goofy pop songs sometimes to kind of provide these moments of, breaking from like the tension. I don't like to be too serious for too long, because then it's
Right.
like it's like I don't know, it's too earnest or something. I don't know.
And how long it took for you to compose? What was it?
Well, I wrote that piece very quickly, actually, but I had a lot of material for that piece that I had kind of prepared ahead of time. But yeah, it was, I didn't have a lot of time at that point that I was preparing the solo performance. So I actually like did a lot of the work for that piece in a day, which I don't feel comfortable with that method of working anymore. Like I like to work much more slowly now. But at that time, I just like, I really felt a very strong need to do a performance. And so I made this, I scheduled this I scheduled this show and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this performance at this show, and it just turned out that I had like one day to put it all together. And it was a little, it wasn't yeah, the piece evolved a lot after that, but it was kind of just forcing me to put stuff together in a way.
And it was piece in 24 hours, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And do you
I
have
mean,
some? Sorry. Do you, but in these 24 hours, do you remember some stages? How you went? Maybe you can tell how you made so quickly, right? So you already write anything on this course, or there was a thought process in this 24 hours as well?
I mean, I had some of the musical material that I think, yeah, so I used a lot of the same musical material as in a previous piece called Sad Music for Lonely People, which I had worked a lot on and like went through a lot of versions of that. So that's a piece I wrote for Ensemble Adapter. And I used some of the electronic material from that piece for the solo piece. And then I had an idea that I wanted to do a story, and I had been like, visiting Inspirobot frequently, and so I knew that I could do something with that material. And then I had also done this performed installation with Sam Scranton called I Love Myself Fully and Unconditionally. And in that piece, we had come up with like this script that we would tell everybody as we took them through this performed installation. And that was made up of these pop lyrics. And so I took some of that material and put it in there. So it was like a little bit, a lot of my work is like this, like it's collage, I take a lot of stuff that I've worked on previously,
Yes.
or other stuff that I've worked on or that I've engaged with, and I kind of collage it together like that.
But it's
So
very
it wasn't
hard.
like I was just, starting from scratch. I don't
Uh,
start from scratch.
and this piece is a very narrative piece, right? So is it correctly as I understand, right, that the text plays a very important role in the piece,
Yeah.
and how it was composing? So at the beginning you wrote the text and then you add music as some kind of sound illustration, or how it was?
No, I had the musical material, and then I came up with the story. And I didn't know that I wanted the story to be repetitive like that until I started working with the text. And I was like, oh, it makes sense for this to be, this kind of like, I mean, it just has a lot to do with what my state of mind was at the time, was that there was like this kind of tedium that I wanted to demonstrate, but not like tedium in like a boring way, just like tedium in like a repetitive way, but it's also like very beautiful in some ways. You know what I mean? And so like that's kind of, that's what the clouds, I guess, and the text together are for me. It's like, you know, tedium, but also beauty, and also kind of like not sure where the boredom is taking you, but not boredom in like the sense that you're not doing anything, just like repetitiveness,
And this text part, right? As I understand, right, you use this Inspirobot. Did you rewrite, or did you correct it, or edit it, or it just what came through that came through
No, I
onto body?
edited it a lot. Yeah. So it just came up with this short story that was a God-Fearing Woodsman searching for a sapphire. Yeah, I think I probably have the original text somewhere, but yeah, in the original story, the God-Fearing Woodsman, it's like based, so it's an AI that's basing it off of these like fables that are like moralistic, and so it's just kind of doing that, but there's no real moral in this story because the AI doesn't understand morality or like,
Right.
so it's kind of it. So in the original story, I think it looks for the sapphire and it encounters some creatures, and yeah, so it's the same idea. I just expanded it a little bit and edited the text to be more, more the words that I liked.
And this visual part,
The clouds.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted, I guess I like using video that projects onto the stage, so that the stage becomes part of the video projection. Um, and I think, yeah, I always had that initial idea, and I liked the shadows that it made, I like that it puts the performers into the clouds. And yeah, I didn't I don't like it when the video is too complicated when it's on stage,
Mhm.
because then I feel like it interferes with the performance in a way that isn't what I'm quite looking for. Um, and so I did the clouds, but then I did want there to be this kind of like both like these elements in the video that were connecting to the text and that were also kind of like wrenches in the wheel of the text, So I had these other quotes from Inspirobot that go like kind of spinning through the air. And then sometimes there's elements that appear in the video that are related to the text, but not necessarily, like they don't have to appear at the same time as the text. They're just kind of referring to the story.
And then what are roles of movements? Right, you said that there are special moments. So
Yeah, so I am repeatedly looking off to the side during the piece, like very rhythmically, and the additional performers are doing this sort of shuckling thing. And yeah, it's just I think it's another branch of the kind of drone that's happening. It's like a physical aspect of the drone that's creating this yeah, this state for the audience to kind of be hypnotized into.
Mhm. Are there
And then in the
special? Sorry.
in the second half, they go dancing and I just start swaying, which swaying is like a thing I do a lot in my pieces, kind of to destabilize stage presence, so that it's like a little bit more fluid. And I got that from my friend Andrew Greenwald. Whenever we used to go to concerts, he would always sway back and forth. So
Right.
I've taken that from him.
And are there special role for videos or for these projections? Are
What do you mean?
right? You said that you're using video projections, right? As I understand, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are there special role in all this composition for videos?
Is there a special role in the
Yes,
pieces for me?
yes.
Well,
From me as watcher.
um, well, and yeah, I mean, in that piece, I think I guess in all the pieces, it's creating a scene. It's like it's just making an entire performance for somebody to get into, so that they are like. I guess I'm a visual person, and I like it when I'm brought into a stage with additional theatrical elements, even if it's not video, like just the lighting and the way that something is presented visually on stage. It's appealing to me. And so I always whenever I'm writing a new piece, I'm always thinking about how it's going to feel to experience that piece. And for me, that includes the way that it's experienced visually.
Mhm. Could you imagine the same piece but without this visual part in the video?
No, no, the video, I think in that piece is pretty important. I mean, I think it works as just a music piece, like just to listen to it, but
Yes,
just to watch it without the video, it doesn't, I don't know. For me, it's an important part of it.
yes, yes. And then can you imagine only the video without sound?
No, no, I can't. That would be really boring.
And what kind of right? You said that you use this bot Inspirobot. What else? What kind of softwares was you was used in?
I do all my video in After Effects now, at the Adobe suite. So I also do some animations, which I draw usually in Illustrator, and then sometimes I take images from the internet and edit them in Photoshop. So I just use the whole Adobe suite. And sometimes I use Blender a little bit, but not really. And the other AIs I use are just from the OpenAI. There's a GPT-3 that I use for text generation,
Yes.
and I've been using Midjourney for some image generation.
And all this this was used as well for this piece.
No,
No.
no, the only AI I used was Inspirobot.
Yes, and this you said Adobe, or right? Have you used that as well?
Oh yeah. I used After Effects for that piece. And actually I generated, I ended up, so I initially used a video for the just a video that I found on YouTube for the clouds, but then I generated clouds in After Effects, which was really funny. It makes me, you never look at clouds the same after you spend like days generating clouds. It was pretty silly, but yeah.
At the beginning, you said that this was a piece which was important at the time, and you thought about that a lot, but you created it in one day, right? Correct, as I understand.
Yeah.
And what was the importance of that piece? Why you want to create that piece?
Well, I really wanted to perform again, and I wanted to figure out what my performance was going to be like. And yeah, I don't know, that's a really important part of my persona, even though, now I'm mostly a composer, and I mean, it's not like I want to be a full-time performer, really, but performing is like how I became a musician, and it's really important for me. And when I stop performing, I don't feel like a musician anymore, and it's very hard for me to be a composer if I don't feel like a musician. So
yes, so it was some kind of musician imagination, right? Which drives it.
Yeah.
And this from creating this piece, right? What you learned, what is like the basic learning points, right? I know this piece was more than 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, it was 2019 that I made it.
But still, maybe you remember what was the main things that you learned through this piece.
That I learned? Well, oh, I don't know. I guess it's a little hard for me to think like kind of quantitatively like that. I mean, that was like kind of a big changing point for me musically, like those couple years around then. Like my music became a lot more like melodic and tonal and lush, I guess. And so now I actually just recently completed 2 other parts of my solo set, and so now I have a full like 45-minute to an hour solo set, and God-Fearing Woodsman is the last part of that. And so, creating that performance of God-Fearing Woodsman, gave me, I guess, sort of a place to
Sorry, just somehow.
Yeah, I think I lost you for a second.
Yes, it is. Yes, just
Did you hear what I said?
I didn't hear the end of, because there was some interruption.
I just said I was just saying, I mean, I guess I feel like that piece is a part of my just like my kind of ongoing path of music, it's a meaningful one. But it ultimately, so now that's part of like my full solo set, and I think it's a very important part of it. But it helped me like kind of develop this performance persona that I'm now like feeling more comfortable in.
This is for me, this is one of the most impressive narrative piece or narration piece which was created in last years. So maybe you can suggest some other composers the good tips how to create good music or good music piece which narrates some stories. What are
Give
the
tips?
basic?
Oh.
Yes. What are the basic,
Hmm.
right?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's funny, like I remember just like a few years before I wrote that piece, I was like terrified of using text actually, which is funny because I've always really liked writing text. Like I really like words. Even though I feel like I'm a pretty bad communicator, I like writing words. And yeah, I think maybe I can give like another little I think it has a lot to do with just like the way that like for me it has a lot to do with just my intuition of how it makes me feel. Like if it makes me feel cringy, or which is always the thing I was afraid of with using text, was that I would feel cringy doing it, or that it would be too like dictating how people should feel about it. And if I feel that way, then that's what the audience is going to feel, I think. And so I have to just keep working with the text and kind of trying to find that line between something making complete sense and making no sense. That's like what I'm always trying to look for, because then there's like space for the narration. For me, there's room for the narrative aspect to do something that's interesting, but not just like yeah, I don't know, not telling something super concrete. I guess that's the thing that I don't want it to be very concrete. I just want it to imply something that can be interpreted in various ways.
Yes.
And like
So
maybe it means something for me, but it can mean something else for other people.
so thank you very much, Natasha, for this um, for our conversation.
Thank you.